Hello, my friend. Welcome to Do Not Talk. I'm CharLee Simons here, talking to the people you're not supposed to talk to, talking about things you're not supposed to talk about. That's what I do. That's why it's called Do Not Talk. I am looking forward to introducing you to my guest today, Josh Bernstein. Are you familiar with Josh? He's made a lot of enemies in the media business. So, of course, I gravitate to those people because I got stories. But I'm going to let him tell you his story. You want to see what Josh Bernstein's all about? Check this out.
Josh Bernstein.
Josh Bernstein.
Not Josh Bernstein.
So we have Josh Bernstein.
Josh Bernstein.
Josh Bernstein.
Josh Bernstein is going to join us.
Josh Bernstein.
He's the reason cry closets were invented on college campuses. More terrifying to liberals than their favorite Starbucks running out of soy milk.
Oh, boy.
More enraging than a transitioning snowflake being called by the wrong pronoun.
Excuse me, it's ma'am. It is ma'am.
What is wrong with this guy?
But I do want to point out, this guy is not a nobody. This guy was on Roku TV. He had his own Roku TV channel. He has a massive audience.
What is wrong with you, man?
In
urban cesspool, your
privilege don't work here.
And do you get that people say they're people for Cocoa Puffs? Like,
This next fella, Josh Bernstein, who seems nice, he has his own live stream and hates Democrats.
He triggers the left more than a newborn baby holding an AK-47 at a school choice rally. Here's the left's most hated conservative voice, Josh Bernstein.
Okay. I like him already. Let me ask you to do me a favor before I bring Josh in here. I'm going to ask you to do me a huge favor. Please go to my website and you can help me there. You can support this show because one of the things Josh and I are going to be talking about and commiserating about is how tough it is to actually make a living doing this. In fact, it costs us money to put these shows on, where this is self-funded. Basically, we're running for office, aren't we now? But I say things and he says things that aren't real popular with the populace, aren't real popular even with our own Republican Party. And because of that, we get ignored, we get censored, we get shut down. And that's happened to me so many times and in so many different ways. So any way you can help support this show, you can do it through my website at charleesimons.com. That's CharLeeSimons.com. CharLee. Yes, my name is Charles Lee, so that's why I spell it that way. SIMONS.com. There's ways to give there. There's also a merchandise store. You can get yourself one of these awesome 15-ounce big old mugs. Let's talk about politics and religion. There you go. You can get one of these hats. I got a whole bunch of different hats, shirts, and mugs and so on there. And I do everything I can to try and make sure they're not sourced out of China. And also, I try and keep the prices down low as well. And they split the profits with me, the company I work with. So CharLeeSimons.com is where you'll find that merchandise store and everything else. You can contact me. You can even book a guest slot to be on the show like Josh did. So I appreciate you going there. Please write that down. Let's get Josh Bernstein on. Let him talk. Heard enough of me already, haven't you now? I know, I'm sick of hearing me too. Ready? Hit it.
Yeah! Woo!
Welcome to the big old bad old broadcast. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic. It's nice to be on the program with you today.
Oh, I appreciate the sentiment. You don't even know me, though. You might walk away from here going, oh, why did I do that guy's show? I've been on a couple of those. I know you're on a lot of stuff, though, aren't you? You're even are you on Sky News? They put features.
Yeah, I've done Sky News.
Out of Australia?
Yeah, a few times. I do a show out of Australia every week, actually. Be doing one actually a little bit later on this afternoon. And Yeah, no, I do a lot of media despite all the censorship. Look, when you're consistent with the truth and you're honest and ethical with the audience and you don't care who it hurts, you get censored and banned and all that stuff too. But you also get a following and you get people that'll keep coming back because they know that what you say they can put in the bank. So
That's a great feeling, because that I value more than anything else. Even if I never make a dime back from all the money I've put into putting this show on all the time, this is my ministry. I'm doing this for the Lord. Bottom line, because
God
I
bless
do.
you.
Ephesians 5:11 powers this show. Be no part of the works of darkness, but instead even expose them. That's what I do. I saw your Rumble channel. The last time you posted something, it was explaining about what happened with your website and why you had to change everything. But it was 9 months ago. You haven't done a show on Rumble for 9 months now?
No, I haven't. Basically because I'm now almost solely on Substack. So jbushow.substack.com is where you'll find me 7 days a week. I never take a day off from doing a show because the left doesn't take a day off from trying to destroy this country. And so I feel obligated, as you do, to continue to fight and defend this great country. You'll get a lot of information that you won't hear too many other places, number one. And number two, you can also get a free digital copy of my book, Preserving Liberty, Bold and Brave Solutions to Save America and Create Permanent Freedom, which was endorsed by, here's a weird mix for you, Roger Stone, good buddy of mine, great person, we all know. Alan Dershowitz, for its constitutionality, he endorsed it as well. And then the foreword was done by Congressman Paul Gosar from the Freedom Caucus. And it is a powerful book. It's a very easy read, 150 pages, but you'll need a yellow highlighter in your hand. And you'll need probably some water to keep your mouth dry from dropping all the time from the information that is in the book. There's sections where I use the FBI and CIA's emails to make points, not just in the reference section, but in the actual pages of the book as well. And so I kind of go through different things to help us preserve our liberty. If you love what President Trump is doing and all the wonderful things that he's accomplished, you'll love this book, because it's kind of like Project 2025 if it was an 8-foot tall Bigfoot, basically, chock full of information, but also solutions to a lot of our issues and a lot of our problems. So we can talk about that. We can talk about pretty much anything you want.
I put all my eggs into the Rumble basket. I say thank God for Rumble, because YouTube has deleted so many of my pages and doxed me and shut me down. And I've got 2 strikes against me and 1 more. They're going to pull the whole dang thing. Facebook pulled all my pages this past summer. Every single one of them. I'm deleted from the platform. I can't even start another Facebook page, and Instagram, which is, of course, owned by Facebook. I'm just gone. 40,000 people. Boom. Suddenly I'm out of their life. And it's been a struggle. I'll tell you that right now. I watched my numbers drop dramatically on Rumble because I had no way of letting all these people know, hey, I got a new show up. And we suck at subscribing. We don't click that bell so you get notified when somebody does a show. We don't follow channels. I'm up to almost 6,000 followers now on Rumble, unlike the tens of thousands I had in Facebook.
Yeah, I think I have 2,500, and I haven't even done a video in 9 months on there. But look, we've all experienced lots of interesting things that have happened. A lot of people like to say that I'm one of the GOATs, as far as the OGs of censorship, me, Alex Jones, Laura Loomer, a few others. And what happened with me is 2 weeks before the 2020 election, I was showing votes being switched live on CNN in the Matt Bevin, Andy Beshear, Kentucky governor's race. And you can literally see them taking 5,000 votes in a split second away from Matt Bevin, who clearly is the governor and should have been the rightfully seated governor in Kentucky instead of Andy Beshear. And so
we watched the same thing happen in Arizona with Carrie Lake.
Absolutely, without a doubt. I've interviewed her a bunch of times on my show, and there's no question that they stole that as well. But here's the thing. So after that video came out, it had about 980,000 views in less than 36 hours. And YouTube literally took both my channels down immediately from that. So I lost, I don't know, 450,000 people almost instantly. And then from there, about a week later, if you remember, you'll have to go back into the memory bank, but James O'Keefe, who I've also interviewed a couple of years back, he was doing a show and an expose, if you will, in Minneapolis, where he's right now today just dropped an absolute bombshell, which maybe we can talk about later. But back then, this was in the lead up to the election, and he was exposing how the chief of staff that worked for Ilhan Omar, or her real name, Ilhan Noor Saeed Elmi, that person was running a ballot harvesting operation out of Little Mogadishu, which is the St. Paul, Minneapolis, Minnesota Leering Center area, if you will.
Little Minnesota.
Exactly. And so from that, I exposed her, where she came from. You see, the lie about Ilhan Omar, and here's the thing, I'm exposing her back in 2019. People are just learning about her now. I was exposing her way back when she was one of the reasons and the catalyst, if you will, that really led to all of my censorship. So I exposed where she came from. The lie that the prostitutes in the media, as I like to call them, say is
prostitutes. Good one. I like it.
Yeah. What they like to say all the time is that she escaped war-torn Somalia for a better life in America. Well, that's absolute garbage. She was war-torn Somalia because her father was Muhammad Nuar, who worked for Saeed Bayar's dictatorship and was a propaganda minister and probably took part in a lot of the atrocities that happened. So they either stole the Omar name in Mogadishu, or they paid it off or something, and they lied on their N-400 immigration forms. Have you ever been close to or associated with an authoritarian, totalitarian regime? No. Well, that was a lie. And so if they didn't leave Mogadishu, they would have been executed. So they took another name and they came to the United States of America. And of course, she then ran as a member in the Minnesota House, I believe the DFL. And she was one of the first and only people, I think there was 2 members at that time, that voted against a bill that would have stopped and banned female genital mutilation. And so that caught my attention. And I was like, whoa, like who is this person? And so, of course, there was a lot of other stories out there as well on her. They were just starting. And so I did a full expose of who she is, where she came from, how she lied to come here, how she changed the rules when she got here and everything else. And then I was trying to tell people, look, this woman's going to run for Congress. Okay. She's going to run for Congress. And by the way, I don't know if people know this. It's kind of a side thing, but Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, or as I like to call her, Dumbelina, Rashida Tlaib, and of course, Ilhan Omar and Ayanna Pressley. Do anybody know how they got to Congress? They are the equivalent of the political Spice Girls. Okay, that's what they are. They ran with a group called the Justice Democrats, and the Justice Democrats put them up. They actually did a casting call of 10,000 people, and they picked AOC to run for that seat in New York. Then they said, well, we need a Muslim woman. They found Ilhan. Oh, well, we need a black woman. They found Ayanna Pressley. And then they needed a Palestinian woman. They found Rashida Tlaib. So the entire squad was the equivalent of the political Spice Girls. That's why she has no experience. That's why she doesn't know what she's doing. And that's how they got to Congress. They put money behind them, and they ran these socialist, communist, Islamists into Congress. But that's a little bit of a side note. So getting back to where I was, explaining all of the details of who she is and the lie about her, I said she should be arrested. She should be investigated. She should be indicted. She should be prosecuted, arrested, and either found guilty and sent to jail forever, or better yet, the E word, executed. Well, that's all I had to say. Josh Bernstein calls for the execution of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. It was everywhere. MSNBC was covering it. CNN, everyone was covering it. I even had
that. By the way, is still on the books. That, by the way, is still on the books as punishment for tyranny.
Yeah, exactly. And so
it's still on the books.
You're absolutely right. It is. It's USC 182381, which is treason, and clearly she is a treasonous individual. And so from that, after that went out, I mean, I even had like Geraldo Rivera saying at FBI, arrest this punk and everything else. It's crazy. She retweets it at the time to all of her supporters, millions of people, and they all started to go and attack the support. So support at Amazon Prime. I had an Amazon Prime television show. Support at Roku Television. I had a TV show and channel on Roku that was doing great. Support at YouTube. Support at Twitter. Support at Patreon. Support at LinkedIn. I was literally ghosted in about 36 hours from everything. I went from millions and millions and millions of views and followers to literally nothing overnight. And so from that, I was like, holy cow, what am I going to do now? So I started a website and I called it joshbernsteinuncensored.com because I'm defiant, right? And eventually I shortened it to JBU Show. And I had it for about 5 years. And I did pretty well. It was a subscription-based website, but the amount of security that I had to pay in 5 years was about $164,000. I had 37 DDoS attacks alone. I was attacked by China.
I'm sorry. 37 what attacks?
DDoS attacks. Those are full blunt force trauma attacks where they break through firewalls and everything else. Put it this way, I actually, at the end of my website, I had 14 levels of security. I had the same type of security that the infrastructure of the government of Norway had, okay? Or Bank of America or Walmart or one of those companies, which, again, was illegal, basically. I wasn't supposed to have that type of insurance and
that cost money.
I did. Oh, it cost thousands and thousands of dollars. So put that into perspective. For an American citizen born here, raised here on the East Coast, okay, for me to speak freely after all of that censorship, I had to rely on 24/7 security in another country just to get my message out. So that's kind of the 50,000-foot view of what happened to me and some of my censorship. And that's one of the reasons why eventually I got an opportunity to write my book to try to break through some of that censorship. But it's been tough. But you know what? If you're not over the target, then then what are you doing? I have a famous quote in A to Z Quotes that says, I want to be loved by millions and I want to be hated by the same amount, because honestly, who wants to be moderately accepted and loved by everyone?
I always say that too. There's people that if they were my friends, I would figure I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
I don't want them as friends. I fully get that. And I understand your plight. And you've been doing this a long time. I've been a radio and television broadcaster all my life. I didn't get into the podcasting thing until about 4.5-5 years ago. So I'm new to the game even still. But you've been on and you've been doing this for, good heavens, how many years?
I'm going into my 14th year. I started in 2012, right around there. And I wrote for Breitbart. I wrote for the Tea Party Tribune. I wrote for a couple of other smaller publications. And somebody reached out to me on Facebook when I was still there. And they said, Josh, I really like your articles. Have you ever thought about doing radio? And I said, no, not really, but I wouldn't mind trying it. And so this is back in the blog talk days, right? Almost dial-up, if you remember. I remember I was also on Ustream for a while. That's how long ago this was.
Ustream.
Yeah, exactly. So I started a blog talk radio show with a gal in Mississippi, and she was a Southern Baptist, and she was very polite and proper and sweet. And I was the rigid.
Did she ever say "bless your heart" to you? Because that's not a compliment,
many
by
times.
the way.
Yeah, well, I don't know. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. I don't know. But so I ended up doing a show with her, and she was the Southern Baptist, the sweet, the nice one, and I was the rougher, tougher, more rigid New Jersey type, East Coaster kind of thing. And what ended up happening was it was called the Grit and Grace Show. And we did it for about 10 months and it got pretty popular. But at about maybe the 9-10th month mark, I realized that nobody knew who Josh Bernstein was and nobody knew who this other person was. I don't want to just out who she was. People can look it up and find it themselves. And I realized I'm branding the wrong thing here. I'm branding something called Grit and Grace that no one even really, they know that, but they don't know the person behind it. So we parted our ways eventually. And I decided if I'm going to do a show on my own, then I'm going to do a show and I'm going to use my name. I'm going to brand myself. And that's exactly what I did. And I was on LinkedIn. And back in the old days, in the Wild West, if you will, of social media, you could post anything, anywhere, all the time. You never got censored. It was fine. It was great. You could build your audience. It was wonderful, right? Well, I got a call from somebody that saw one of my shows on LinkedIn. And it turns out that this gentleman was the general manager for what's known as Star Worldwide Networks out of Scottsdale, Arizona. And it turns out that he reached out to me and he said, hey, I really like your show. I'd like to get your show in front of Dave. And I said, Dave who? And they said, Dave Pratt. And I said, the morning mayor, Dave Pratt? Like the famous Dave Pratt, who's in the Radio Hall of Fame in Arizona? He's like, yeah. I'm like, how do you know him? He's like, well, I'm his general manager. And I was like, oh, okay. So long story short, I was working for Voice of America, I'm sorry, Voice America, not Voice of America. So the guy that had that company and that name was pretty sharp guy, because I'm sure he got a lot of overflow from Voice of America, if you know what I mean. And I was a producer for them, but honestly, I wasn't. It was just a glorified phone jockey where I was selling, like radio shows to like authors and stuff like that. I wasn't really doing production work. Long story short, I go in and meet with Dave Pratt, the morning mayor, Dave Pratt. And he's like, Josh, I really like your show. I like everything you're doing. And at the time, he was trying to sell me a show because he knew that I was working at this other company. And I said, well, look, I don't have the money to do that and this and that. And he goes, well, I tell you what, why don't you come work for me and you can sell, shows for me, and I'll give you a free show twice a week. And we'll put you in a real studio and you can do your own show and then you can work with me. And I was like, wow. Producers, engineers, the whole bit. Absolutely. So I ended up doing that. And at one point, after about maybe 4 or 5 months, he wanted to break into video, right? This isn't kind of in the beginning. We're really going way back here.
Yeah. And because I was working for CBS at the time, CBS Radio, and we were live streaming the show, and corporate came down and said, we can't figure out a way to make money on live streaming, so we're pulling it.
Oh, geez, imagine that.
That's why CBS is in, and all the networks are where they are now, because they're just that stupid. So they pulled all presence off of the internet right when it was starting to build. Dumb.
Wow, that's unreal.
Yeah,
so I ended up doing the show there, and all of a sudden I came in one day, and again, this was just radio only, and all of a sudden I see a couple of people sitting in chairs in the studio area. And I noticed that they're members of the media here in Arizona. I don't want to say their names. So they're sitting there, and one of them's got a clipboard. He's a sportscaster. Another one is a evening nightly news lady. And they're sitting in these chairs, and they're watching me. And, the producer's like, don't worry about it. I don't know why they're sitting there. Just do your thing. And so I'm doing my thing. And this is the first show that we did on video. And he basically used me as a guinea pig. Never, ever did it before. Didn't know what the hell I was doing. I had my notes in front of me. I'm looking up. He said, just keep eye contact with the camera. So, okay, no problem. So I end up doing the show. And then afterwards, these two people leave and they go into the conference room with the door closed for about maybe 10, 15 minutes. All of a sudden they leave. They say, nice to meet you. I'm like, okay, nice to meet you. They leave. And Dave says, Josh, come on in here for a second. So I go into the conference room and I'm like, what's going on?
This is after the show was over, of course. I mean, they didn't pull you off the air.
Of course. No, of course not. And so
no, that's happened. Don't say of course not. That's happened.
Yeah, Dennis Michael Lynch, right? I'm not going to take it anymore. Remember that? It was a brave patriot move right there on the air. But so what ended up happening was he walked in and he said, look, I want to continue to do a video show with you every single week. You did really, really well. And I said, well, those people were from like the news. And he said, yeah, they were. I wanted them to sit in and see what they thought of you. And I was like, okay, well, what did they think? He said, well, the one sportscaster said that he was a little annoyed with me. And I said, me personally? He said, no, me as in him, Dave Pratt. And I said, why? And he said, because he asked me why I was going to sit here and talk with watch this kid, as he called you, this kid. I can't teach him anything. He was a natural. Why am I sitting here? What do you want me to do? And Dave said, that's what I thought. The other gal said kind of the same thing, that if you don't hire him, maybe we will. And so from that point, they kind of put full production behind me. And I started doing this show on what was known as actually the Double Wide Network, which eventually became Star Worldwide Media. And I did it for about a year and a half, had big guests, all that good stuff. And it was a lot of fun. And I owe a lot to Dave, because Dave, you know,
one of the nicest people I've ever met. I got to work with him on a couple of things.
Yeah.
One of the nicest people in the business.
Just an absolute gentleman,
Yeah.
just a great guy. He
Great
wasn't
talent.
really a political animal at all.
No.
He was friends with, you know, like, I don't know, like the guys from Striper came in a couple of times. Luis Gonzalez, the baseball player, was here. Doug Ducey, you know, all these people that in Arizona that kept coming into the studio and stuff like that. Some of them, I interviewed Doug Ducey before he was our governor. And all that. But long story short, he taught me a lot. He taught me about cadence. He taught me about voice inflection, pitch, tone, rejoiners, right? In case you're just joining us, we're speaking today with, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, if you're just tuning in, this is Josh Bernstein.
Exactly.
So, there you
and
go.
so I learned a lot from Dave. Actually thank him in my book in the acknowledgement sections. And he was wonderful. And I would say, the other person who was really instrumental was the late, great, you know, Barry Farber. I did Barry Farber's show, I don't know, 300.
That's cool.
Times.
Oh, my goodness.
Somewhere
Basically,
around 300 times, I think.
One of the founders of, but everybody always talks about Rush Limbaugh, but Barry Farber was doing it before Limbaugh.
Yeah, and Barry Farber was just a sweet, sweet man. I actually got a chance to meet him in person. My father passed in October of 2019. And so I'm in Arizona, and obviously I had to go back east for the funeral. And I decided, you know, I'm going to go and see if I can get a chance to go into the city, and I'm going to go find him, locate, you know, I talked to Celia, the daughter, and she gave me directions. And so we went up and saw him, and he died May 5th, I believe, of I think it was 2020. And so I saw him just a few months before he passed in person. And, you know, sometimes, especially when you're coming up, and this is someone, by the way, that Sean Hannity counts as his mentor, okay, in radio and things like that. And Barry was just this really sweet person. I loved him dearly. And he always would end every broadcast with keep asking questions, which I always loved. And I think the thing that I learned from him is that this was a man that lived through so much history, from the Cuban Revolution to the JFK assassination to 9/11. And he would just have these most incredible stories. And sometimes when you're in media and broadcasting, the best thing that you can do is just shut up and just listen and just learn. And I loved doing his show because his setups were so amazing when he would bring up a subject, because he would kind of weave in a past historical event and then bring you to current day. And it was just incredible. It truly was incredible. Of course, you know, he passed, and it was terrible. Actually, I was on the air when I found out. I was on the Jiggy Jaguar show, to be honest. James Lowe, Jiggy Jaguar out of Kansas. And he was like, oh no, breaking news. And I was like, oh man, it was just terrible. And so they had a tribute a couple of days later. And I'm not a big fan of Sean Vanity, as Michael Savage likes to call him. And there's a reason for that. You know,
Vanity.
Imagine, I don't like to bash people. I've always been respectful. But when your quote mentor passes and you have all these big hit people in media and radio and broadcasting, that I was part of this Zoom call, and you don't show up and you phone it in with a video, this is your mentor. I don't care how busy you are. This was your mentor. You come on to the live broadcast. And he didn't do that. I don't know why he didn't do that. I was there. There was many other big hitters in industry, you know, top 100 people, everything. And it was a tribute to Barry. And so I'll never really, that never will sit right. You know what I mean? With him not showing up for that. But long story short, those were kind of my mentors. And then, of course, definitely I would have to say AMAC and and Dan, who has passed away. He was the founder and owner of AMAC. For folks that don't know what AMAC is, it's the Association for Mature American Citizens, which is the conservative alternative to the AARP group, or as I like to call them, the American Advancements for Radical Progressives. Let's be honest, that's what they are.
It's pathetic.
Exactly.
It's definitely targeted towards the whole program's for seniors, but it's also targeted with just propaganda and crap in their magazine and everything else that they do and the things that they support with your money. Get out of AARP. I love AMAC. I think they're doing a great job. Thank God for them.
So I ended up interviewing Dan at one point, and I was working with a group called Special Guests, and they were putting people on my show and things like that. And I was working with them, and they booked this guy Dan from AMAC, founder and owner, and I'm like, what do I know about seniors and healthcare, right? So I started thinking about it. I started doing some research, and I was like, oh, I know my angle here. I'll talk about Social Security. I'll talk about Medicare. I'll talk about Obamacare, things like that. And so I had a great interview with him, about 45 minutes. It was great. And at the end of it, I was looking for advertisers. So I said to him, I said, Dan, it was a pleasure having you on your show, having you on my show. Would you like your company's message to be part of my show moving forward? And he goes, well, what do you mean by that? And I was like, well, I have these really great advertising spots and this and that. And he kind of laughed and he goes, no. I advertise on Sean Hannity's show and Laura Ingram's show and all the, and I was like, well, I certainly don't have that type of an audience now. And he goes, no, you don't, but you have something else that I like. And I said, well, what's that? He goes, well, I like the way that you handled yourself. You're articulate, you're smart, you're compassionate, you know your stuff. Would you want to be a spokesperson for my group? And I was like, absolutely, yes, I'd be honored to. And he said, okay.
You're trying to get him to advertise on your show, and he's now saying he wants to pay you.
That's correct.
Be a spokesman. Oh, that's swinging for the fences there, buddy. Good job.
Yeah. And so what happened was he goes, I got to go to Washington and I got to do some lobbying work in DC. Give me 2 weeks and I'll have the lady call you and we'll work out some details. So a week goes by. I don't hear anything. 2 weeks goes by. I don't hear anything. So I finally just call him and I go, hey, Dan, it's Josh Bernstein. You were on my show a while back. Oh, yeah, Josh, I'm so sorry. Did no one call you? No. Oh, okay. Give me till tomorrow and I'll call you back. And so he did. And we worked out a kind of like an agreement where it was kind of like, okay, we'll book you on radio shows, TV, whatever, and you get paid a certain amount per, interview. So like $100 or whatever it was. And if it was television, it was 200 or whatever it was. This was a long time ago. And so all I had to do was talk about AMAC and then give out the phone number and free memberships. I think it was 1-800-262-2883. I don't remember. It's been a long time. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's not. Long story short, I could talk about any subject matter on any of these shows as long as I promoted AMAC in the beginning. And they introduced me as Josh, AMAC spokesperson, national spokesperson, Josh Bernstein. So now all of a sudden I've got a big title, which helped me career-wise as well.
Heck yeah.
But when I got censored, and actually even before that, I think when Dan passed away, he had a stroke, so may God rest his soul. The kids took over, and they ended up firing me because I guess I was too controversial or whatever. They ended up hiring Rudy Giuliani. Rudy Giuliani did it for maybe 3-4 months. Then he left, and then there was like a whole bunch of people going in and out. And then I think after Fran Tarkington, they eventually settled on that guy, Ben Ferguson, who's in the media as well. I think sometimes he works with Ted Cruz on The Verdict or something. I think he's like a guest with them or something. And so they work together, whatever. And so I think he's also still the national spokesperson. Maybe he isn't, maybe he's not. I don't know. I'm not sure. But here I was in my 40s, not even old enough to get a membership for the group because it's 50 plus, and I'm representing 2 million seniors. It was a lot of fun. So those are kind of like the three big influencers, if you will, on my career.
I love it. Congratulations. And I know that you've gone through some struggles and you've taken some hard hits, and you had to make some financial decisions because it was costing you so much money just to protect your own frickin' website. I'm blessed. I have a friend who has his own private server. He's the one that built my website. So it cannot be taken down, but that doesn't mean it can't be attacked.
Yeah,
it certainly could. And,
well, that's why I moved over to the Substack, because, you know, knock on wood, they don't do any censoring. And not only do they not do any censoring, but they actually help promote you. Like every single thing you post has a subscribe button in it. And every video you put up, they automatically cut 3 or 4 little tiny segments on it that you can promote. Yeah, it's a really, really good platform. So if folks want to support me,
I've had a lot of friends tell me I need to go over there, and I just haven't done it yet. Well,
$49 a year. I actually have like one of the lowest prices possible. That equates to $4.08 per month. You get 7 to 10 shows a week, because sometimes I'll do 2 or 3 segments a day. You also get my Full Throttle Thursday, which is a live broadcast every Thursday night where people join on a Zoom call. They can ask me any questions they want and interact with me. It's a lot of fun. Plus, you can either buy a copy for $20 on Amazon or Barnes & Nobles, wherever books are sold, or you can get a digital copy, which they sell for $12.99 for free for becoming a paid member. And I always joke and say, the only thing missing from this deal is the gun, the ski mask, and the getaway car, because it is truly highway robbery for that kind of content.
I admire anybody who writes a book. For heaven's sake, I'm impressed if you write a pamphlet. My buddy Trevor Carey.
Well, there's a story behind the book too, if you want to hear that one.
Yeah, well, tell me.
2023, I go to Turning Point every single year. I've been going for years. And in 2023, I just decided, I'm going to take myself, go with my wife, and I'll bring, my security guy just in case, whatever. And I'm just going to go on Saturday. I'm not going to go Friday. I'm just going to go Saturday. Let's just see what happens, right? So I go there, and if you haven't been in a few years, it is huge. I mean, the vendors used to be in the hallway where Media Row was. Now they're not. Now they have their own auditorium with so many. I mean, it's like football fields deep of people. So I'm walking around through there.
It's kind of like a Cracker Barrel. You have to walk through the store to get to the main venue, to the restaurant. That's how it is. I was at the People's Convention in Detroit with Turning Point, and he's right. I've never seen, they turned that entire convention center. There wasn't a space on the wall, I don't think, that wasn't covered up in some way, including the big giant pillars with Turning Point stuff and pictures of Charlie Kirk and everything else.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah, I was in the one in Phoenix just a couple, month or so ago.
Yeah, I wanted to go to that.
Well, I live in Arizona, so it's a 45-minute drive to me to get there. But so anyway, I'm walking around in there, and I see all these vendors and this and that. And all of a sudden, I see a big banner, and it says Skyhorse Publishing. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then there's like a little table set up, and there's all these books. And I'm like, oh, Dr. Ben Carson, I've interviewed him. Dr. Robert Malone, I've interviewed him. And I'm going through all these different people. And so the girl says, who are you? And so I explained who I was and that. And she's like, have you ever written a book? And I said, no, I've never written a book. But many years ago, I wrote like a 10, 15-page thing, and I called it The Great Squanderer. And it was about Barack Obama, having an opportunity, being the first Black president, to not be divisive and race baiting and all that, and actually be a better candidate and better person to bring the country together. Right, exactly. And I said, but it's really not timely now. She goes, no, it's not. She goes, but why don't you write something and submit it to us, and maybe we'll get you published. And I said, oh, okay, maybe I'll do that. So I get home, and I've known AJ Rice for years, over 10 years. If you don't know who that is, do you know who AJ Rice is from Publius PR?
Absolutely. Yes, I've had him on.
Great guy. Love him to death.
He really
Good
is.
Friend of mine. A lot of big guests I've gotten through the years from him. So I'm very thankful of that. Anyway, he sent me a PR statement, like, how you get all these PR statements for different shows. And all of a sudden I see Tony Lyons, and it says RFK Jr. 2024 PAC president, and then / owner of Skyhorse Publishing. And I went, wait a minute. So I grab my business cards, I'm flipping through, and I go, Rachel Marble, And then I went, Tony Lyons, owner. I said, holy cow. I called AJ. I said, AJ, you got to get Tony on right away. Okay, no problem, Josh. So I get him on the show, and we're talking about RFK Jr.'s campaign and all that. And I talked to him about, Skyhorse, of course, and off the air, because I didn't want to do that on the air. I would never do that. But off the air, my goal was to say, hey, I wrote something called Preserving Liberty. Can I send it directly to you? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. But once again, like with AMAC, he threw a wrench in things. He then offered to kind of hire me to interview his guests every Friday because he liked the interview. He was impressed or whatever. So I'm like, okay, I'd be happy to do that. So this was December. It was like the last day of December, like 29th, 30th, something like that. And come January, the first Friday, I'm interviewing one of his guests, right? And then every week after that. So I don't hear anything all of January. I'm like, okay, no problem. February rolls around. Every Friday, I'm interviewing one of his guests. I still don't hear anything. So then March rolls around. It's 3 months now, and I'm interviewing his guests. And finally, at the end of March, I'm like, man, what's going on? I haven't heard anything, this and that. So I was starting to get a little, perturbed, I guess would be the right word. And I actually had my assistant, my publicist, say, let me see if I can find somebody there and see if we can talk to them. And I was like, all right, because after that, I was like, I'm going to Winning Team. I'm going to, all these other publishing houses and stuff.
Right.
And so
many to choose from. Yeah.
Yeah. And so before I did that, I said, hooking up with Hector. And I don't want to give his last name, but Hector did the last 7 books for Alan Dershowitz, including 2 of his bestsellers. So she books a Zoom call with me. Her name is Marlene and Hector. And we do about a 45-minute call. I sent him the 15-page outline that I wrote. And he's like, Josh, I love it. This is great. This is going to be so good. I really want to do this book. And I said, oh, that's wonderful. What's the next step? He goes, well, let me talk to Tony and I'll get back to you. And I'm thinking, all right, what, week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? He goes, no, about an hour. An hour? He says, yeah, let me just literally talk to him. I was like, okay. An hour and a half later, I get a phone call saying, Josh, I talked to Tony. He gave us the green light to doing Preserving Liberty. And it was like, I was like, wow, like that is unbelievable. And the saddest part about this, and it just kills me, is that I couldn't tell CharLee at Turning Point and say, thank you, CharLee. It was your event that let me become a traditionally published author. And that kills me to this day. But that's the story behind Preserving Liberty.
I went to see him speak 3 different times, each time better than the one before. The last one was actually at San Francisco State University. And the police department actually did an extraordinary job of keeping the protesters away. And as you can imagine, in San Francisco, there were many of them
what I call it too.
trying to disrupt, destroy, but they kept them far away. And I was impressed, actually, and somewhat surprised, because I thought the SFPD would be looking the other way, But no, they did a fine job. And I'm looking around and I'm seeing sniper. Well, sniper. They were all around. Now, I don't know if that was SFPD or if that was CharLee's security detail, but they had everything covered. What happened in Utah? And that whole thing is so suspect to me, buddy. Why did his shirt move? If it's a 30-06, you're going to be getting a gigantic exit wound. That's not going to be stopped by a neck muscle. That whole thing is so completely weird. What do you know about that? What are your thoughts on that? The killing of Charlie Kirk?
Well, the one guy that they said was, quote, doing hand signals and all that wasn't the case. That was his pastor. Actually, he came out and did a video afterwards, said that he was in the SUV with him and everything else. Look, the kid was a good shot, I think. I don't believe there was another shooter. I know there's a lot of conspiracies out there. Obviously, they found the gun and everything else. And here's the thing. I agree that it was likely just him, but I don't think that it was just him as far as who set it up, who funded it, the entire online trans terrorist nation.
Why was he ever even able to get up on that roof in Pennsylvania when President Trump was shot? Obviously, there was some dirty
there's no question
there.
that was a
Things were
patsy.
allowed. They looked the other way. Something was completely nefarious with that as well. How did he have access to that roof?
Exactly. No, look, as far as the Butler assassination attempt, look, if I was President Trump, and I've been saying this for the longest time, I would have put my hand on the Bible, sworn in, President of the United States, and I would have told my team, all right, I want to know by midnight tonight who tried to kill me. I don't care what you have to do. You get me that information by tonight. I want to know right now. Where is the urgency to find out who tried to blow your head off, basically?
I know.
Right? I don't understand that. It doesn't make any sense to me at all.
And the media's moved on. I mean, they moved on.
I have a feeling I know who was behind it, and I don't want to say publicly. Maybe you can ask me off the air. But if you think about the relationship between Cheadle and another individual, and who was in charge of the scheduling, and the fact that it was done in a wooded area, with all these different rooftops, I mean, it clearly points, I think, to one individual, but I don't want to. I'll leave it at that.
I wish you would say it.
I'm not going to say it because
I don't know why. Why would you not?
Because I don't want to get sued by accusing this one, person in particular.
So all you have to do, the trick. You've been in the media long enough. You just say allegedly. Allegedly.
Yeah. Well, allegedly. Then I think it all leads to who was in charge of security for the Secret Service. Cheadle. Right.
That wasn't even the A team either. That was the B team.
The B team was purposely put in. So allegedly, it might have been. But I think in reality, I mean, who was setting up all the schedules? Who knew exactly where everyone was going to be at every single point of time, including RFK, including Trump, including, heels up headboard Harris, as I like to call her on my show. All of these people, okay? Who would have known that? There's only one person that would have known that. And so, and I think it came from the highest ups.
I think if she was running the Biden administration all along,
totally
actually. She's the
absolutely
auto pen.
It was basically Obama's people running it until May of 2023.
I believe that.
That's when took over, kicked everybody out. That's when the rift happened. And of course, we know the auto pen situation and everything else. And that's why I say, if you want to get to the root of what happened in the last 4 years, there's 2 investigations that have to come forward, and they have to be prosecuted, indicted, imprisoned, and jailed, and everything else. One is the auto pen, because if you can get the auto pen and get to the bottom of the auto pen and hold those people accountable, now you can go to the Supreme Court and you can say, hey, I want to challenge the constitutionality of a preemptive pardon. Okay. And then once the Supreme Court rules that there's no such thing as a preemptive pardon, because according to my buddy Alan Dershowitz, who endorsed my book, he doesn't believe it was legal either. Then you can unravel what happened in the last 4 years. And the other thing is the Mar-a-Lago, because here's the thing.
Oh my God. Going through Barron's and Melania's underwear drawers and all this freaky crap going on. That Mar-a-Lago raid was insane and unprecedented, never been done in the history of our nation. And again, where are the repercussions from all that? Why are so many FBI agents that are so dirty still employed by the FBI? Why are there so many still in the DOJ? I thought they were going to clean house and just start over. I don't care if you get down to a skeleton crew of 12, you start over. There are good people out there that they could bring in quickly, like they're doing with ICE and Border Patrol, but and bring in retired people or people who were fired during the whole COVID crap because they wouldn't take the shot. You got a whole lot of people out there who would love to come back, and but yet there's still the FBI and the DOJ, I believe, is still very dirty with deep state.
Yeah. Well, Mar-a-Lago was their fatal mistake. Let me explain why. Russia, they would have gotten away with it. Why? Because there's a statute of limitations. That's why, right? The impeachment, all the other things that they did, they would have gotten away with all of that. The second They raided Mar-a-Lago. It now becomes a criminal conspiracy. It resets the clock. And we know that Barack Obama would have presidential immunity, right, for anything that he did during office, which is why everyone underneath him would be hopefully indicted and in trouble, but not him, unless they can prove through email communications, any type of phone transactions, whatever it might be, if he did anything and had to do with anything with the Mar-a-Lago raid, he no longer has immunity, and therefore there's no statute of limitations on a criminal conspiracy charge. I believe that this administration is working on that diligently. I always say we've got to be patient. Everyone's yelling and screaming, when you're going to arrest someone. I get it. I understand. But justice done right doesn't happen overnight. Would we want them to come out and indict someone right away? And the next thing you know, some slick left-wing lawyer gets a hold of the case and pokes holes in it. And the next thing you know, all that work is gone. I'd rather have them do their diligence and really put together an ironclad case and then bring that ironclad case. Yeah. And what you're doing, you're not going to get convictions in New York. You're not going to get convictions in DC. You're not going to get convictions anywhere, in Virginia or anything, but you can get convictions in Florida. What did they do on January 12th? They impaneled a grand jury in St. Pierce, Florida for criminal conspiracy. So I'm telling you, this is something that they're working on.
I hope you're right. I wrote an article about this very thing because all my fellow conservatives were screaming and squealing about where are the arrests? How come people haven't been arrested? And I'm like, please stop saying that.
Exactly.
And I literally had them say, oh, it's going to destroy us at the midterms. I'm not even going to bother voting unless there's some arrests start happening. Well, to what end? Okay, look what just happened with James Comey. Look what happened with Letitia James. They walked because you got all these dirty judges and they can't impeach them because we don't have a majority in the House and the Senate. We got to have that at the midterms. And everybody's saying now with the Minnesota thing going on, oh, it's hurt Trump so badly, we're going to lose dramatically at the midterms. Well, you fellow Republicans suck at even showing up for voting in the midterms and in the primary. So sit down and shut up unless you're going to actually get involved and start getting people registered to vote and start getting them to show up for the primaries coming up this summer. Because elections are won and lost in the primaries, especially in California with our jungle primary. We don't show up. They were celebrating the last election, 2024.
Exactly.
Oh, 33% of us showed up at the primaries. 33%? You're bragging about that? It's in the team.
Look, I said this before, and I'll say it again. If we're not patient, we're going to vote ourselves into communism, okay? Because these people are bloodthirsty, clearly. They will do anything. They will kill, murder, rape, pillage to get back into power. You don't think they're not upset about illegal immigrants? They don't care that illegal immigrants are being arrested. You know what they're upset about? Their illegal voter base is being ripped out by the roots. So what
they're not undocumented workers, they're undocumented Democrats.
Exactly. So what I say is if we want to maintain power, we have to win those midterms. And one of the best ways to do it is for President Trump to avoid the government shutdown by doing another budget reconciliation bill. Because here's the thing. How was the one big beautiful bill signed into law? It was done through reconciliation. We only need 51 votes, right? You get the majority, you get Vance to step in. He's the tiebreaker. And now we have the one big beautiful bill. We need one more of those. You need to add the SAVE Act. You need to nuke the filibuster. I've been on the fence about the filibuster, but after watching the Minneapolis just absolute civil war insurrection that James O'Keefe just dropped about an hour ago, there's no question that we have to nuke the filibuster. We have an opportunity to dismantle and destroy the left in America right now, and we have to take that chance because, God forbid, if they win in 2028, they're going to nuke it. They're going to pass H.R. 1, which will federalize our elections. They're going to, do statehood for Puerto Rico, probably Greenland, probably, Mariana Island. Who knows what they're capable of doing? You're going to have 14, 15, 18 judges on the court. I'm telling you, it all comes down to this, because if we don't do it now, they're going to do it to us. And it's no longer about a peaceful transition of power, not on our part, on their part. And they don't believe in that anymore. And clearly, when you watch the Minneapolis video, you'll see what I'm talking about, because it is unbelievable how evil and, just abhorrent these people are. I mean, they're not even, they're like demons. They're literally like demons. They
are demonized. They are doing the devil's work.
They remind me of jihadists.
They are.
Because jihadists are willing to die for their cause, right? They're suicide bombers, whatever. These people are the same way. They're martyring themselves in front of ICE to affect change and getting Republicans to say, wow, gee, maybe these tactics are a little too strong. Are you kidding me? I want $1 billion to spend on ICE, $1 billion. That's what I want through a budget reconciliation bill. I want them to go from Hawaii to Alaska and everywhere in between, every single state, every single blue state community area. And I want them to rip all of these illegal voters out immediately and do it before the midterms. Because
our own Republicans say, well, they need to be arresting. Last night, a conservative friend of mine was going, well, they need to only be really targeting the ones who have committed crimes.
Everyone that's illegal is a criminal.
Son,
as far as I'm
thank you. The word illegal alien, Chris Cuomo. The word illegal alien tells you exactly they have broke. And then Don Lemon going, well, it's just a misdemeanor. Is misdemeanor not a law?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Is misdemeanor not a law? I'm sorry, Don. Would you please spell that out? How that's not breaking the law? They have all broken the law coming in here. Well, they're basically nice people. They're just looking for a better way of life. Well, then come through legally. And another thing too, that's the minority of those people who have come across illegally. That's the minority of those who actually want to start businesses and have jobs and start a better life here. Most of them, they came here because they know they're getting the freebies.
Absolutely.
And they are.
Yep. And it boils down to cost versus value. When we were building this country, there was value in bringing people into the country. They wanted to make the country better. They wanted to give their culture, their cuisine. They wanted to work hard. They were willing to become Americans, learn English, give back to this new country that has given them so much. Well, that has now all flipped. And now it's, what can we take? What can we extract? What can we steal from the American people? And we're tired of it. So if you look at, like, for instance, these Somali sewer rats, as I like to call them, right? What value do they bring other than Democrat votes for the Democrats? But what value are they bringing? It's a cost versus value assessment. We need to change all of immigration based on that. Oh, you want to come to America? How much money are you worth? Or do you have a job already? What's your story history? I mean, we've got to do almost like the gold cards that Trump is doing. We need to do that for every single person. But before we do that, we need a moratorium on all immigration, legal and otherwise, for 20 years. There is 55 million illegal aliens.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry if there's good people who've been waiting a long time to come in here. They're going to have to wait, because we just had almost 50 million illegals come in here.
More than 50.
And I believe it was at least 50 million, not the 10 or 20 that everybody else is saying. I've talked to J.J. Carroll and Gil Mazza, these retired Border Patrol agents, one actually working again for ICE. I've talked to this dude, again, can't name his name because everybody's being doxxed, everybody's being destroyed, who's daring to actually uphold the law in the United frickin' States of America.
Yep.
And it's out of control. It's got to end. And this has to be done just like President Trump promised. And we were all on board when he was campaigning, saying he was going to do it. Now that he's doing it and there's some pushback in stinking Minnesota, the whole country's going, oh, maybe we need to rethink this.
Yeah, because it's a psyop. This is a Communist Party psyops, and Republicans are stupid enough to buy into it. You went and voted for President Trump when he said what? I will do the largest deportation in U.S. history. And you voted for him. You support that. You have no right to complain on how it's done. Okay? Just sit down and shut up and allow this country to heal itself by getting rid of these criminal aliens. That's what needs to be.
Getting rid of this, cutting out this cancer, which is what it's been.
We need to explain that to people. And I hope President Trump would say something like that, saying, do a thing, a post, speak to America and say, you are witnessing a communist takeover and psyops. And the people that voted for me, that this is what I was going to do. Now you're complaining on how I get it done. You're falling for it. Don't be stupid. Tell
And they're
the
also
American
complaining that
people
President Trump is concentrating too much on world things instead of concentrating on the United States.
I'm
Listen,
okay with that. I'm okay with that. Let me explain.
so am
why.
I, because the things they were trying to instigate and start World War III. That was part of the 16-year plan. How many Republicans even know about the 16-year plan? What can you do to educate people about this plan? This was an Obama-Clinton thing. And of course, their communist ties. The 16-year plan. What can you tell everybody about that to please educate them?
Well, clearly that's what it was. I mean, it was going to be Hillary Clinton for 8 years and after Barack Obama, and then, another communist and eventually, take over everything. But look, you brought up a good point, and I want to kind of explain this, okay? A lot of people are complaining, concentrate here domestically. We don't care about the rest of the world. Let me explain why that is wrong. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that we didn't just make a deal to get Greenland. We didn't just extract Maduro with new types of weapons that literally discombobulated everything, according to President Trump and some of the people that were guarding Maduro. Not a shot was fired. I can explain that in a minute.
In
we didn't,
30 minutes,
just
30
put all
minutes.
these tariffs, right, on all these countries. Let's just say that we only did domestic, and we didn't do anything about that. And we have a great economy, and everything's doing hunky-dory. We're doing fantastic. And God forbid, in 2028, we lose, and we still have China, and we still have Iran, and we still have Maduro, and we still have Cuba. Why would you want that? How about destroy the mechanisms that are the impediment to world peace now, and then eventually get to the domestic stuff? I mean, you got to understand something. With Venezuela, okay, let me explain this real quick. Venezuela was number one in crude oil reserves, 302 billion, okay?
And China was counting on that.
By extracting Maduro and taking him out and taking the oil, we are now number one. We went from number 10 at 48 billion oil reserves to number one. Now, China was getting 13% of their oil from Venezuela. Where do you think the other 87% is coming from? Iran. Iran is number three. You've got Saudi Arabia, and number three at 209 billion crude oil reserves is Iran. So if the Iranian regime falls, which I believe it will very, very shortly, and you take that oil plus America's already 48, plus the 302 and the 209, you are now talking 560 billion crude oil reserves for the United States, far and away the most powerful country now when it comes to oil. And every single country in the world has to obey us and buy oil from us. That is the power structure that President Trump and his vision for this country and this world is putting forward. And getting Greenland was huge, because Greenland, look, you've got 80% of Greenland that's under ice. Only 20% of the people live, 57,000 people. I mean, Ohio State University has more students, okay, than the entire country of Greenland. And Nuuk, N-U-U-K, is the capital, and that's where all the people live, okay? So if you secure that, and remember, there was the agreement after World War II. Actually, I should say during World War II, here's what happened. The Nazis invaded Denmark. And of course, the Denmark was like ungunned. I mean, they couldn't handle it, right? So they reached out to the United States and said, hey, we need help here. We then went into Denmark and pushed the Nazis out, okay? And what happened from that point is we signed an agreement in 1951 allowing us to secure the airspace and build military bases in Greenland. Now, granted, it wasn't an ownership type of situation. It was just an agreement. So we didn't really own the land to do it, but we did put the Thule Air Force Base, which is now the Patufik or whatever it's called now, Space Force Base in the northern part of Greenland. And we can secure the airspace, and we can secure the country now. And we're going to build 4 to 6 more military bases with anti-missile defense systems and things like that in Greenland. And the thing is that the Golden Dome, the majority of it is going to be in Greenland, and it's going to protect, of course, the United States, Greenland. It's going to protect probably even Denmark, and it's going to protect Canada.
And that's a very real thing. For anybody who doesn't know it, or they think, oh, it sounds like a Trump thing, gold, whatever. It's worked for Israel now for quite a while, the Iron Dome, as they call it there.
Absolutely. And it was American technology, according to President Trump, because he said it the other day in Davos. I mean, think about it. He goes to Davos and he comes home with Greenland. I mean, the guy is incredible. He is literally incredible. And the strategic vision that he has for the future, knowing that the Arctic region is going to be the next battlefield, he's securing that now. He's keeping us out of World War III. People don't understand that. And I actually suggested that President Trump should go to Greenland and do a speech, 45-minute speech, whatever. Tell the people directly, we're not here to take you over. We're not here to invade you. We just want to protect you. We want to protect Denmark and, of course, the United States and this region. And go there and explain it. And that's what he really needs to do. But I think in reality, this is going to be the best thing that he could have done. But think about it. You have 28 million people liberated potentially in Venezuela, which is going to happen. You've got 92 million in Iran. And when the Cuban regime falls, which it will within 2 years or less, I can almost guarantee you that, that's another 11 million. So President Trump's legacy, if you will, at the end of this presidency will have been to liberate from communism 130 million plus people. If you want to talk about doing the right thing foreign policy wise, that's it.
We get a majority in the House and the Senate this coming November. If
it doesn't matter. He's going to
primary elections,
regardless. Even if we lost the midterms,
they will attack him in so many different ways. They will defund all this, just like they're trying to defund ICE right now. They will. This is going to be catastrophic if we don't maintain some kind of majority in the House and the Senate. That's how important
I agree
this
with
is.
you.
Get registered to vote, registeredtovote.ca.gov out here in California. I don't know, wherever you are, look it up. Registeredtovote.ca.gov. This has to be done. We've got to do this. We've got to show up this June for the primary election and then again in November and vote the whole ballot. Yep. Stop just voting president, vice president, and then leaving everything else open. Because there are ways in California that they're cheating now that they'll literally take what you don't vote for and they'll turn it into a vote against you. This is real. This is going on. I pray that President Trump will be able to fix elections before this coming November. I don't know how he's going to do it in states like California because they will just literally go, yeah, we're not going to comply. And then how do you reverse an election that's already been done? Obviously, Joe Biden did not really win that election in 2020, but yet he had 4 years under that tyrannical nutbag. It's imperative that we do this. And speaking of prayer, it's imperative that we pray for President Trump's safety. Pray for him, pray for his family.
Absolutely.
Pray for him, pray for his family and his administration, pray for their protection.
Yep.
That is vitally important right now. If you don't think there's power in prayer, then you're not paying attention. God is. And I do believe that that he will heal our land if we humble ourselves, we turn away from our sin, we ask for forgiveness. He will do that, and he will heal our land. He promises that. That's in 2 Chronicles. So there are things happening now in spirit, principalities, whatever you want to call it. There are levels of darkness that we can't even comprehend. Most of us is not even in our DNA to realize how wicked and evil these people are. I mean, they're sucking the blood out of children to stay young looking. These freaks need to go. They need to die.
It's pretty.
No,
it's pretty insane.
I'm not supposed to make that judgment. So please, Lord, forgive me for saying that. But I do know Jesus said anyone who causes any of these young ones to stumble, it's be better for them to have a heavy millstone tied around their neck and to be cast into the sea. He didn't say it'd be better for them to do it to themselves. He said it'd be better to be done to them. I'm stocking up on millstones. Everyone else is buying gold and silver. I'm buying millstones. I am done. Son, I'm so sick of these people. They need to go. They need to get out. And Armageddon's on its way, man. We're in the last days. So I'm not going to sit back and go, well, I'll just wait until Jesus comes back and he'll take me away. I'm going to be quiet over here. That's going against scripture as well. That's going against scripture.
Why do you think we've been censored? Why do you think I've been censored? Because I'm not afraid to tell you right to your face what I'm thinking and what needs to be done. And then be not only active in engaging in it, but also helping my audience and things like that, giving out phone numbers, giving out email addresses, telling people how to be civically active and engaged. That's what preserving liberty is all about. That's why it's titled Create Permanent Freedom. Let's understand there's been 300 executive orders. How many of those are permanent? Only 28.
They won't be. As soon as you get some Democrat in there, they'll reverse them all.
28 are permanent. Why? Because they were included in the big, beautiful bill. But the rest
Thank God
can
for that.
all be reversed.
He's got 90 people proposed to be U.S. attorneys. Only about 17 of them have been approved.
Regardless of all that, we have got to do one more budget reconciliation bill. And in it, we have to put the SAVE Act and election integrity. Because if we don't do it, it's curtains for this country. I'm telling you.
It is
Scary.
that serious. It is absolutely that serious. He's not exaggerating.
No, I'm not.
Josh Bernstein, I had a feeling when I first came across you, I've been in a broadcasting side of things for so long. I haven't paid attention to what's going on in the podcasting world most of my career. I didn't care. I was busy doing my own thing. I always, I put all my eggs in the broadcast.
I was on radio
world,
for a while, KFNX 1100, about 6 months or so.
Where's that out of?
Phoenix.
Okay, gotcha.
Phoenix market.
But when I ran across you and I saw what you were doing and who you were, I thought, oh, I got to get this guy on. I think he and I are going to get along great. So I'm glad I did, and I was right. I think you're fantastic. How do we find you? How do we help you? How do we get your book? Run through that.
Yeah, you can get the book on Amazon, Preserving Liberty, and you can find it on Amazon. Or if you want a digital copy, just join my Substack. That's where all the action's at for me every single day, like I said. And it's jbushow.substack.com, jbushow.substack.com. And you can join me on Thursdays live. But I'm going to do a show kind of like what I did right now, where you're going to find out details and information that you've never heard anywhere else, that I can guarantee you. And, I cover it all. It doesn't matter what the subject is. I can cover it from geopolitical, international, abortion. It doesn't matter what it is. I can cover any topic, because I always say I hate these people that get on radio and television and go, well, ask me about this, but don't ask me about that. Don't talk to me about that, but only ask me that. Look, if you're on radio or television,
I've had guests walk out because I went.
You should be able to cover it all, and if you can't cover it all, you shouldn't be on radio or television.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, I really enjoyed talking with you, Josh Bernstein. Thank you so much for your time. Would you come back on the show
any
again?
Topic, and I mean that.
I was just going to ask, will you come back on the show again?
Absolutely. I said that to Dr. Drew, and he did a little thing after I got off the air, and he goes, "Wow, I really like that. Anytime, any topic. I'm going to have him back on." So, and I mean it. Anytime, any topic, and with short notice. I don't have notes with me, and I didn't write stuff down or anything. This is, if you don't have the knowledge, you shouldn't be on the air, as far as I'm concerned.
And Brian Williams from Embassy Nightly News.
Yeah,
you're
Brian
on his
Williams.
hit
what
list.
What a putz that guy is.
You're
so
on his
what
hit
happened
list.
Was my publicist.
Well, that makes you a good guy in my book.
My publicist found that real quick, that clip. And it was a clip of me basically designating the Democrat Party a terrorist organization, because they are. Let's face it. I mean, they're violent. They don't believe in rule of law. They're lawless. They're anarchists. So yeah, they are a terrorist organization, no different than other terrorist organizations. And so there was like a 2-minute thing, and then at the end he says something like, "And if any of you think that this is just outside the fringe, I remind you of the boiling frog experiment." And then he says something like, "And that's our show for the night. I'm Brian Williams, NBC Nightly News." He did that on the his eighth broadcast till the end. So in other words, he had 8 more broadcasts.
He already knew he was out.
Exactly. And so we found the clip, and I was like, oh, this will be great for an opening. Oh my God, I would love this. And so we put together, I wrote that entire opening, by the way, the entire thing. So, and that was from like 2022, 2023. So who knows? The years just kind of keep going on and on and on.
Yeah, huh? My dad always said, son, the older you get, the faster the years will go. I'm like, oh, great, Dad. Thanks a lot for cursing me with that.
Yeah.
Because he's been right. I appreciate you very much, my friend.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
like
much
I said,
for the time.
anytime, any topic, I'm there.
I appreciate that very much. And don't say that, because I will do it. I'll have him on every week, just like I do Arthur Schopper, who I also get a big kick out of. I love his mind. Love that guy's brain. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you share this with others. I hope that you will go to my website and help. I hope you will buy some products in my merchandise store. And you'll be helping the show stay on the air that way. Or if you just want to outright give, there's many different ways there, including Give, Send, Go. So please go to my website, charleesimons.com. Help this show stay on the air and share it with others. charleesimons.com. May God bless you and keep you. May God bless America. But most importantly, America, bless God.